Hello everyone. I'm going to show you how to set up your first game of Fate of the Norns on Roll20 using the character sheet and custom scripts. The first thing to know is that in order to get this to function properly, you will need a Roll20 Pro account that gives you access to the API. The character sheet is available for anyone to use, but if you want to use the playmat functionality that will allow you to draw runes to the board and things like that, then you'll need the API for that. So for this, I've created a test game right here. And when you're creating your game, you're going to want to go into Game Settings and API Scripts. And under the Game Settings, you just want to choose the Fate of the Norns character sheet. Easy enough. And for the script library, you want to first off get a script called map change, which is not a script that I designed, but something that will allow your characters to switch between the normal GM or the normal layer that you have them on and the playmats screen where you're going to be doing all of your playmat and management there. So we'll go ahead and add this. The second script that you're going to want is called Fotn Companion. And you can just add script this. But for right now, I'm going to import it. And if you import it, then you'll have access to the actual text here. So if there are any bugs, you can go in and change them. And for right now, just that one capitalized thing. This is an error in there, the IWAS rune. Just delete the capital E and put in a normal E, a lowercase e, and click Save. That'll be fixed in the next version. So if you have version 1.0, which is what it's currently on, then you might need to do that. It's not going to be a big deal if you don't. All right, so that's the easy part. Next, let's go ahead and launch the game. And we're going to go ahead and make a couple of things. First thing that we're going to need to do is create a new page. And we're going to call this Playmats. Sorry. On playmats, the P should be capitalized. So now I'm going to switch to the playmats screen, and I'm going to drop in a playmat. So depending on if you purchased a package, the playmat might be a part of your purchase, or if not, you can get it from the Fate of the Norns website. You know, size it to a size you think is appropriate. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in up here in the upper left. Let's actually make a couple of these, just in case I want to make more than one character. Alright, next, let's make a character. So I'm going to go to the character sheet. I've got 2 characters already here. And I think Clerk Goklu is a weird name, so we're going to call him Sven. Player name is me. Archetype, you can put whatever you want in here. Doesn't really matter. So for this, archetype is going to be Scald. Let's make him level 9. Usually in this space, I just put in like whatever type of rune he has for the void. So let's say spiritual. And we're going to give him essence 5 and destiny 2. Okay. Easy enough. For skills, you can come in here, you can add whatever you want for your skills and put the rank in there. So we'll call this Ride and say that he has rank 2, and Perform at rank 3. Go ahead and turn that off. And that's fine. So you see this little box here? Usually to the right of any of these things, there's an expand box. Click that and you can put in your description of the skill. And you can resize that and just type whatever you want in there. Okay, so let's have some passives. And again, it doesn't really matter what you put in here. I'm just going to type some random stuff, fill in the type of passive that it is. Say this is an enchantment. And here you can fill out a description. And you can put in the effects of this passive, at least the effects that the passive has on your base statistics. So PDF is physical damage factor, pierce, focus, reach, range, heal, recover, size, move. PPF is physical protection factor, parry, evade. Here we have MDF is mental damage factor. So let's say that whatever this passive is, it is going to give you a +2 to physical damage factor and a +1 to move. All right. And cool. Now I'm going to add another one. I don't know. Let's call this doesn't matter. This is a feat. You don't have to fill those out if you don't want to. Let's say that this one is going to add to physical damage factor, and it's going to add to parry. All right. Now, these don't get calculated in unless you check this box on the left. When you check the box on the left, they'll be added into the final calculations because there are a lot of passives that only apply under certain circumstances. Like there's some passives that might only apply if you're under the influence of a spell. So when you come under the influence of a spell, you can come in here, click that on. On the other hand, there are some passives that might be active all the time, and you can just click those on and leave them on. Whatever the stats that you filled out in here, those will get added in when the box on the left is checked. All right, so now let's add in some active abilities. You're usually going to have a Void Rune. Here you have your ability type and your metas that you can fill out. And in here, again, you have a description, and you have all of the effects it can have. So let's say it's going to increase your damage factor by 2, your size by 2, and your parry by 1. All right, that's good enough. Now here you're going to want to select what type of rune is associated with it. And it's by the name of the rune, so you might need to look that up. But let's say I have Ing. And this is going to give me a focus of 3. And let's say Tuaz. We'll call this Shade. Maybe a couple of those. Let's say that this is going to give you a Pierce of 5. And just to show you one more thing, because NPCs and Denzians and monsters and stuff usually just use, physical rune, mental rune, spiritual rune, and not the specific runes, you can also select physical, mental, whatever. Usually you wouldn't have these two things mixed together, but I'm just showing it off. Say that this is going to be move +5. Okay. And again, these things don't get added into your calculation unless this box on the left is checked, which you'll usually do when you're using that rune. So like if you use an ability, you'll go ahead and check that. If you have got an ability maintained, then you might leave it checked and check something else the next time you use an ability. Down here for equipment, you just got name of the equipment, description of the equipment, and again, all of the different stats it can affect. I recommend if you've got something that is like miscellaneous, like maybe one of the other players put you under an enchantment. And that enchantment is a buff. It's going to give you some extra damage factor. I usually recommend modeling that as just a line in the equipment called miscellaneous. You can just leave it here and somebody says, hey, I buff you. You got like +6 PDF. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in here. Close that. And click it on. And then whenever you're not under any particular buff, you can click that off. That's the easiest way to just put in miscellaneous stuff. So if you look here under the current tabs, this is all under the character tab. If you look under the current tab, you'll see all of the stuff that I have checked is reflected in here. So I have like a +6 PDF from that buff that I got. I had something from this passive and something from this active. If I add this in, see, now the physical damage factor has gone up to 11. Now it's gone down to 9. Nice and easy. Okay, so there's a few more things that you are going to need if you are going to play. We have a nice character here. We need to add some abilities in. These are going to handle the basic game functionality for weirding and cleaning up. And so you're going to need at least 2, but I recommend 3 here. The first one is going to be called Weird. And the text that you want to put under that is this. !weird @ brackets character name space -- at brackets destiny. Okay? We'll click accept on this, and I usually would say show in macro bar, show as token action. The next one that we need is cleanup. And under cleanup, you want to have this. !cleanup space -- at brackets character name. And you do need to type it twice. Don't know why you need to type it twice, but you need to type it twice or it isn't going to consistently work. And the last one, this one is, what's there. I'm going to put stun here. This one isn't, strictly speaking, necessary, but it helps. And so in the weird, if you look this up, the way the weird works is you type !weird, all lowercase, and then the ordering of commands that you can put after that is -- character name. You have to have that. That tells you which character is weirding. -- destiny. That doesn't actually have to be destiny, but that's how many runes are you drawing. And then, and you have to have both of those, but there are a couple of options after that. So the playmat zone and the layer. So weird all right, so that means it's going to be this character 1. And you can, by default, it will weird to your in-hand. But if you want, you can weird directly into stun, wounds, death, or drain. And by default, this uses the middle damage track. So wounds 1 will display to the first gray, wounds 2 to the second, wounds 3 to the third. But I want to get this to stun. And that's just going to help you to get runes out whenever you take wounds. Alright, next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to have to go to the playmat here. Go in there, and the name needs to be the same as the character. So So Sven, Sven Playmat. Just like that, with Playmat not capitalized. We'll go ahead and save this. And you don't need to, but I like to usually just drop a little text box in here. So that I know whose playmat that is, even though it doesn't really matter. Let's make that white so it stands out a little bit easier. And the next thing that you are going to need is a deck. Decks are where your character's runes are kept. And there's a few different ways you can build a deck. You can build it manually. But I have also built a macro that will build a deck for you based off of a character sheet. So if I just go here and do build space dash dash Sven, that should go ahead. And now you see we have a deck in here called Sven, and it has 3 runes based off of the 3 runes that I put in for his abilities. It's going to skip the void. So it won't put the void rune into your deck because the void rune never gets drawn. But here you see I have Ing, Tiwaz, and the physical, which are the 3 that I put in. The card backing by default is a blank rune. If you want to, you can replace this with something that has the character's name on it. But it shouldn't make any real difference. Alright, so that's good. Save changes. With build, by the way, you can also build a custom deck. So note that there was no deck named Sven. When I said I wanted to build a deck for the character Sven, it built me a deck named Sven. If there had already been a deck named Sven, then it would have kept the same deck with all of the same deck settings. If it makes a new deck, it uses some defaults that I put in there. But let's say I go in here and I add a new ability here. Alright. And now I go back in and I build Sven again. Now Sven's deck has the 4 runes in it. Now, what if you want to build a deck that for a character that doesn't exist? Well, you can build a character for it, but sometimes you might just need a deck that has some custom runes. And so you can go build. You are going to need to give the deck a name, so let's just call this Bob. And then you can just name the runes that you want in it in a comma-separated list. You don't need the quotes here. Or you do. Yeah, here we are. And you don't need the quotes. And here's just Bob's deck now that I built custom. Okay. So now let's weird for Sven. So remember I typed those commands in, and I told him to put them in the macro bar. So here Sven is going to weird. Oh yeah. You probably want to move your playmats to the map layer. Otherwise, the runes will tend to weird underneath. So here we are. And Sven just drew 2 runes, and I actually recommend that you, under the page settings, remove the grid. Because otherwise it's going to try to line up your runes to the grid, and that's going to be annoying. Alright. So if I go stun, you see here it says named character name. Ah, okay. Need an at before that for this stuff. For there. There we are. And that should go into stun. This is actually not the official playmat that I'm using here. This is one that's kind of cut off. Let's see if I can find the right one. Do I have that in my... Yeah, that's correct. It is important to use the actual playmat. The proportions of the playmat don't matter so much, but if it isn't the full playmat, then the runes will weird into the wrong place. So like the last one was actually cut off short. Okay, so I'm going to click clean up here. Oh, this does need to be renamed. Still need to call it Sven Playmat. If you don't call it Sven Playmat, then what you'll get is you need to name a playmat Sven Playmat. Just telling you kind of what's going on there. Alright, so let's weird. You see that. Stun. Now for cleanup. Let's say that normally runes that are in your wounds are not cleaned up. They stay in play. And so if I press clean up here, it's going to take away everything from up here, but it's going to leave anything that is in wounds, death, or drain. By default, it will clean up stun. So, if there is something that you need to keep out here, let's say I have this is maintained, and let's say that this is in stun, but I'm not recovering it, so it needs to stay in stun. But I do want to clean up that rune. Stuff that is not below this branch here, stuff that's above this branch here will be automatically cleaned up unless it is selected. And so I can shift select to get both of those and now press clean up, and only the unselected stuff goes away. Now let's say this takes another damage. I clean up next turn. Let's say I heal, and I could just put that back into essence. And the next time I clean up, it'll go away. So anything below this branch here. So one more thing here that you can do is, let's say that you are the GM and you have some bad guys that you don't necessarily want the PCs to know what their runes currently are or things like that. You can send the playmat to the GM layer. And let's call this Ragnar. And let's make a character named Ragnar. And this is going to be an NPC, but let's just give him an essence of 5 and a destiny of 2. And say he's got physical, mental. That's easy enough. Go ahead and build Ragnar. And so for Ragnar, he's still going to need, if he wants to weird, and you probably are going to want him to weird, you're going to need a weird here. And that is still going to be this. But remember, you can weird towards hand, which is where he's going to want to. And you can specify what layer you want to weird to. And so now I have him weirding to the GM layer. And so if I go down here and I go Ragnar weird, you can see that those 2 runes have weirded to the GM layer on top of Ragnar's sheet. Now, an annoying thing that I haven't quite fixed yet, but will eventually, is that they do tend to show up behind the playmat. So you might have to go in here and go to back. And you will, of course, have to be using the GM info overlay in order to move and manipulate these runes. But if you want to have some hidden character sheets, or some hidden playmats, you can do that. And so the last mechanic is, let's say we're here on a map page, and just to make this accurate, since this is a hex game, we're going to give this some hexes here. So this game, as a mechanic, has a certain thing called alkas, which are basically battlefield effect tokens. They can be like fires, or ice, or magic of various different types of effects. But there are lots of powers that create these alka map things that you're going to need to put out there. And it can be annoying in Roll20 to constantly be going over to the graphics tab, and you sort of want players to be able to do this. So there is a script called Alka, and currently there are 3 tokens in it: fire, ice, and magic. And you don't have to use them for that, but so let's just go Alka space -- fire. And it'll put a Fire Elka token out in the middle of the field. It's gonna put it on the objects and tokens layer. By default, right now, it doesn't have any controlled by, but if you go in there and just press controlled by all players, save settings, then you can just copy and paste it as many times as you want, and your players should be able to manipulate it. So in the macros, there are two macros that you are going to want to add. And probably every player will need to make their own macros for this, since macros that you make, I don't think, by default show up for everyone. But you're going to want a macro called playmats, or playmat. So the action here is that. And you probably want to show that as token action. And the other one is going to be rejoin. Which is real easy. It's just !MC space rejoin. Now, as a GM, you can switch your maps up here whenever you want, and these macros actually won't help you. But if I rejoin as a player here, now as a player, I don't have access to the maps menu, so when I need to get to my playmat area, I just playmat. It needs to be whatever you named the map that contains the playmats. Map playmat not found. Alright, what did I do wrong? No, it is playmats. Okay. Beep whoop. Jump cut. Alright, I don't know exactly what it was, but it's working now. So you see here, I click playmat. Takes me to the playmat menu. Here I click rejoin. Takes me back to whatever menu the GM has designated the players to be on. So that's the basics of how to build your first Fate of the Norns Roll20 experience. Alright, so Skull, have fun, play Norny.